Something unusual is happening behind the scenes in Iraq, and if you follow the Iraqi dinar closely, the next few weeks could reveal important clues about where the country's financial system is heading. In today's update, we are going to break down several developments that, when viewed individually, may not seem dramatic, but when connected together they begin to paint a much bigger picture about political stability, oil legislation, the banking system, and the long-discussed monetary reform that many dinar watchers continue to follow very closely. Over the past several days, discussions across financial and political circles have focused on regional security, internal political reforms inside Iraq, and the future of the country's banking structure. These topics may appear separate at first glance, but they all intersect with one central issue: stability. For any currency reform or exchange rate adjustment to occur in a country like Iraq, the government must demonstrate stability in three major areas: security, governance, and financial infrastructure. Without those pillars in place, major monetary changes become extremely difficult to implement. Let's begin with the regional situation that has been drawing attention lately. Some commentators have been discussing the possibility that tensions involving Iran and U.S. forces in the region could evolve more quickly than originally expected. A few analysts have suggested that geopolitical operations in the region could move faster than previously projected timelines. However, it is important to keep this discussion grounded in reality. While regional tensions do influence investor confidence and security planning, there has been no official confirmation of any specific timeline that would directly trigger economic reforms in Iraq. Geopolitical developments can create pressure and urgency for governments, but they rarely translate into immediate monetary policy changes. Still, these regional dynamics are worth watching because security stability always plays a role in economic decision-making. While regional tensions continue to fluctuate, Iraq itself is working through internal political reforms that could have a more direct impact on the country's long-term stability. One discussion currently circulating in Iraqi political circles involves the structure of parliamentary blocs after elections. Some political leaders have suggested that the list receiving the highest number of votes in elections should automatically be recognized as the largest parliamentary bloc. The reasoning behind this idea is simple. When election outcomes are interpreted differently by competing political groups, the result can be months of negotiations, political deals, and sometimes gridlock. By clarifying the rules, political leaders hope to reduce uncertainty and strengthen the credibility of Iraq's democratic system. Why does this matter for the Iraqi dinar? Because political clarity directly influences investor confidence and economic planning. International investors, financial institutions, and global organizations often look for predictable governance structures before committing to large investments. When the rules of government formation are clear, it reduces uncertainty and allows economic reforms to move forward with fewer delays. Another important piece of the puzzle involves the hydrocarbon law, often referred to as the HCL. This legislation has been discussed for years and remains one of the most important economic laws in Iraq. Iraq's economy is heavily dependent on oil revenue, with oil exports generating the overwhelming majority of the government's income. Because of this, the legal framework that governs oil production, exploration, and revenue distribution is absolutely critical for the country's financial stability. The hydrocarbon law is designed to create a clear system for managing Iraq's oil and gas resources, while also addressing disputes between the federal government in Baghdad and the Kurdistan regional government. For years, disagreements over oil exports and revenue sharing have created uncertainty in the energy sector. Investors and international oil companies want clarity on who has authority to approve contracts and how revenues will be shared across the country. One misconception that occasionally circulates online is the idea that the hydrocarbon law would directly provide monthly payments to Iraqi citizens from oil revenue. In reality, the law focuses primarily on governance and distribution at the national and regional government levels. While oil revenue ultimately funds public services, salaries, and infrastructure, the legislation itself is not structured as a direct payment system to individual citizens. Understanding this distinction is important because it prevents unrealistic expectations about what the law is intended to accomplish. Meanwhile, the Iraqi dinar's official exchange rate has remained relatively stable. The Central Bank of Iraq currently maintains an official rate of roughly 1,220 to 1,400 dinar per US dollar, depending on the market and the specific currency window being observed. Despite political discussions and regional tensions, the central bank has kept the rate largely steady in order to maintain financial stability and control inflation. A stable exchange rate is often a sign that the central bank is prioritizing predictability, while larger economic reforms continue to develop behind the scenes. However, security concerns inside Iraq still remain part of the broader picture. Reports have indicated that demonstrations have taken place in some areas, including protests expressing political or regional support. Iraqi security forces have occasionally used crowd control measures such as tear gas to disperse demonstrators. In addition, militia groups operating within Iraq have sometimes been involved in tensions with foreign military forces stationed in the region. These events highlight the complex security environment that Iraq must navigate while attempting to move forward with economic reforms. Despite these pressures, the Iraqi government continues working to balance internal security with political progress. Maintaining order while continuing reforms is a delicate process, but it is one that Iraqi officials have repeatedly emphasized as essential for rebuilding economic confidence. Political leadership is another key factor that many observers continue watching closely. In parliamentary systems like Iraq's, forming a government coalition can sometimes take months of negotiations. Positions such as the president, prime minister, and key cabinet roles must be agreed upon by multiple political blocs. Until these positions are finalized, major legislative initiatives often move slowly. This is why many analysts believe that once political agreements are reached, legislative progress could accelerate quickly. When the leadership structure is fully in place, Parliament can move more efficiently on economic laws and reform programs. Another political discussion that has circulated recently involves speculation about certain political figures possibly stepping back from leadership bids or changing their political roles. While rumors and insider reports often circulate during government formation periods, it is important to treat these claims carefully unless they are confirmed by official announcements. Political negotiations in Iraq are complex, and leadership decisions can change rapidly as alliances shift. Beyond politics and security, one of the most significant challenges facing Iraq's financial system today involves the banking sector itself. The Central Bank of Iraq has repeatedly highlighted a major issue. A large amount of physical cash is being stored in private homes rather than inside the banking system. This phenomenon is often described as hoarded cash, and it creates serious problems for economic reform. When large portions of a country's money supply remain outside banks, it reduces liquidity within the financial system. Banks rely on deposits to provide loans, support investment, and facilitate digital payments. If citizens do not trust banks enough to deposit their money, the entire financial system becomes less efficient. This lack of liquidity can also slow the development of modern financial tools such as electronic payments, digital banking services, and potential future digital currency initiatives. Building trust in the banking system is therefore one of the central bank's major priorities. Iraqi officials have been working to modernize the banking sector, strengthen regulatory oversight, and expand digital payment systems. Over time, these steps could encourage citizens to move their money back into banks, which would strengthen the country's financial infrastructure. Some analysts have speculated that monetary reform, including the long-discussed project to delete the zeros, could help encourage this shift. The idea behind the project is primarily a redenomination process designed to simplify Iraq's currency structure by reducing the number of zeros on banknotes. In practical terms, this type of reform would not automatically increase purchasing power, but would instead make accounting, pricing, and financial transactions easier to manage. Historically, many countries that experienced high inflation have implemented similar redenomination programs once their economies stabilized. However, these reforms require careful planning. If implemented incorrectly, they can cause confusion or even trigger inflationary pressure. For that reason, the Central Bank of Iraq has repeatedly emphasized that any currency reform would need to be supported by strong economic conditions, political stability, and public confidence in the banking system. Another long-term topic that occasionally appears in discussions is the concept of a digital dinar, or expanded digital payment infrastructure. While Iraq has been exploring digital financial systems like many countries around the world, there has been no official announcement that a full digital dinar currency will replace physical cash in the near future. Instead, current efforts appear focused on expanding electronic payments, improving banking technology, and reducing reliance on physical cash transactions. The challenge remains clear. If large amounts of money continue to stay outside banks, digital financial systems cannot function effectively. Encouraging citizens to return their funds to the banking system may require a combination of stronger banking protections, improved services, and continued economic reforms that build long-term confidence. When we step back and look at the broader picture, several themes begin to connect. Iraq is working through political reforms aimed at strengthening governance. The government continues negotiating key economic legislation, such as the hydrocarbon law. The central bank is maintaining exchange rate stability while attempting to modernize the banking sector. At the same time, regional security tensions and internal political negotiations continue shaping the pace at which reforms can move forward. For those who closely follow the Iraqi dinar, these developments highlight an important reality. Major monetary reforms rarely happen overnight. They usually occur only after a long sequence of political, economic, and institutional changes gradually align. Iraq appears to be moving through several of those steps, but the timeline remains uncertain and depends heavily on internal political agreements and continued economic progress. As always, the most important thing for viewers and dinar followers to remember is that many rumors and speculative predictions circulate online. While discussions about currency reform, exchange rates, and economic transformation are fascinating topics, they should always be approached with careful analysis and realistic expectations. What we can say with confidence is that Iraq continues working toward financial modernization, political stability, and stronger economic management. Each reform, whether related to oil legislation, banking modernization, or political structure, represents another step in that long process. The coming weeks and months may reveal further developments as Iraq's government continues negotiations and reforms move through parliament and the financial system. Observers around the world will be watching closely to see how these pieces come together and what they might ultimately mean for the future direction of Iraq's economy. As always, this update is intended for informational and educational purposes, helping viewers understand the broader economic and political context surrounding Iraq and its currency. None of this should be interpreted as financial advice or a guarantee of any future exchange rate changes. The situation continues to evolve, and responsible analysis always requires patience, verified information, and careful observation of official announcements.